Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we're looking into a really quite haunting cold case from 1931 London. It's the unsolved murder of 10-year-old Vera Page.
It's a truly tragic story, and what we have are these detailed accounts, from the time, the crime, the investigation, the inquest.
Exactly. And our aim here is to, well, pull out the key facts, the details that still make this case so compelling, and really explore the evidence and, frankly, the unanswered questions around Vera's death.
Yeah, it's not just retelling the sad events. It's about looking at how the evidence was gathered, what conclusions they drew back then, and why a case with seemingly, strong pointers just went cold. It's fascinating from an investigative standpoint, too.
Definitely. So let's start with Vera herself. She was born in Hammersmith, April 1921, an only child.
Right, working-class family. Her dad was a painter for the railways, mom a housewife.
And by all accounts, she was popular, but also kind of shy. Well-behaved, certainly.
Yeah, that's the picture we get. The family sometimes took in lodgers to help out financially, but apparently only people they already knew.
Okay. And then, in January 1931, so just before all this happened, they moved to Notting Hill, Blenheim Crescent, number 22, ground floor and basement rooms.
And this detail is important, isn't it? The other occupants of the building?
Yes. Upstairs, on the upper floors, lived a middle-aged couple, Arthur and Annie Rush. And they'd been there for a long time, about 20 years.
So, established residents in the same small building, that proximity, it immediately becomes relevant when you look at how things unfolded.
Absolutely. That connection right there in her home sets a certain focus early on.
It really does. It provides a direct physical link to someone who becomes central later.
So let's go to the day she disappeared. December 14th, 1931. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
Vera leaves home. She's just walking a short distance down the road to her Aunt Minnie's place, number 70 Blenheim Crescent.
Okay, and she was going for a specific reason.
Yeah, simple errand. To pick up 2 swimming certificates she'd left there the day before. Her aunt confirmed, yes, Vera came, got the certificates, and left around 4:45 p.m., supposedly heading straight home for dinner.
Just a normal, everyday thing for a kid to do.
Totally routine, which makes what happened next even more shocking.
And the fact her father reacted relatively quickly when she didn't return.
Exactly. It shows this was unusual for her. By about 5:30 p.m., she wasn't back. Her dad went to check with Minnie, then started asking friends, other relatives. By 10:05 that night, he officially reported her missing to the police.
So a gap of several hours where worry was clearly mounting.
Definitely. The search started pretty much straight away. Neighbors, friends, everyone chipping in.
And the next day, her description was circulated.
Widely, yes. By the evening of the 15th, the local papers picked it up. You can imagine the alarm spreading through the community.
Yeah, that quick escalation really tells you how worried everyone was. This wasn't a child known for wandering off.
Not at all. So the police start digging, asking questions, and they find the last confirmed sighting of Vera.
Okay, when and where was this?
Sometime between 5 and 6 p.m. that same evening, December 14th. Outside a chemist shop, right at the corner of Blenheim Crescent and Portobello Road.
Okay. Was she alone?
She was seen talking to a school friend. Vera apparently told her she was thinking of buying some soap dominoes. They were in the window display as a Christmas present.
Soap dominoes?
Yeah.
Nah.
And the friend saw she was carrying an envelope. Her aunt later confirmed that would have been the swimming certificates.
Got it.
Then the friend left, just left Vera standing there looking in the chemist's window.
And that's it. No confirmed sightings after that point.
That's the last verifiable one. Haunting, isn't it? Standing there alone.
It really is. It pinpoints her location and time. And, crucially, that she was alone just before whatever happened next.
Then, 2 days pass, December 16th. A milkman is doing his morning rounds.
And he finds her.
Yes. In the front garden of 89 Addison Road in Kensington. That's about a mile from her home, in the shrubbery.
A mile away. So she wasn't just nearby.
No. And what's really unsettling is her body wasn't really hidden, just sort of covered with a bit of earth, some leaves.
Not concealed properly. That's
Yeah.
odd. Suggests haste. Or something else.
Yeah, police thought maybe the killer was disturbed or rushed, or maybe it just didn't care. It also suggested the murder itself probably happened nearby.
And that the person knew the area well. Addison Road.
Knew the area, yeah. And that mile distance obviously implies transport was involved somehow.
Definitely. You don't carry a body a mile easily.
And then, at the mortuary, they find something small, but hugely significant.
This is the bandage.
Right. Exactly. A worn piece of finger bandage. crucially stained with ammonia, found lodged against her inner right elbow.
Ammonia. Okay, that immediately provides a potential chemical link, doesn't it?
Okay.
A clue about maybe where she was held or the killer's occupation, perhaps?
Precisely. It became absolutely central. So the post-mortem, Sir Bernard Spilsbury conducted it, a big-name pathologist back then.
Ah, yes, Spilsbury. What were his initial findings?
Pretty grim. He concluded Vera had been raped, then manually strangled. And he believed it happened shortly after that last sighting near the chemist.
So, quite quickly after she was last seen.
Seems so. He found some superficial bruising, but also a ligature mark on her neck that was post-mortem made after death, probably from moving the body.
Okay, and the time of death.
He estimated she'd been dead for over 24 hours before the milkman found her.
Right, that helps narrow the window for the crime itself.
But here's where it gets more specific. The decomposition was quite advanced for the time frame.
Oh, what did that suggest?
It suggested to Spilsbury that her body had been kept somewhere warm between the murder and being left in the garden.
Ah, okay. Not just left out in the cold.
Exactly. And consistent with that, despite heavy rain recently, her clothes were relatively dry, only damp where they touched the soil where she was found.
So she couldn't have been lying in that garden for very long at all.
Spilsbury thought less than 2 hours before discovery.
Wow. Okay. That's precise.
And there was more. Traces of soot and coal dust on her face.
Coal dust.
Interesting. And spattered candle wax. 2 spots near her right shoulder, 3 on her coat.
Candle wax, too. Soot, coal dust, candle wax. Sounds like a specific environment.
It does. And Spilsbury agreed that finger bandage, the ammonia-stained one, most likely came off the killer as he was placing her body there.
A direct link, potentially.
And crucially, the candle wax found on Vera, it didn't match any candles from her own home.
Okay, so ruling out her own house as the storage location. These details, the warmth, the coal dust, the wax, they really start to paint a picture, don't they?
They do. Based on all the coal dust, the specific candle wax Spilsbury made a deduction.
Which was?
That Vera's body had likely been hidden somewhere like a coal shed, or maybe a cellar, somewhere without electric light, hence the candle.
Makes sense. A logical conclusion from the physical evidence gives the police a specific type of place to look for.
Right. And the police investigation that followed was massive. Understandably, there was huge public outcry. A 10-year-old girl murdered.
You can only imagine how extensive was the investigation.
Over 1,000 people questioned. Thousands of witness statements taken. They were really throwing resources at it.
And what was their main theory?
The prevailing idea was that Vera must have known her attacker. That she was lured away, perhaps into a warm room initially.
Which would fit with her shy nature, maybe? Less likely to go with a total stranger?
Possibly. Then attacked. The coal dust obviously led them to think she was stored in a coal cellar afterwards.
Explains the soot and dust evidence.
And then transported later to Addison Road, and that's when they figured the bandage got dislodged. During the move.
Okay, that narrative holds together based on Spilsbury's findings.
Now, a potentially crucial witness comes forward, a woman named Margaret Key.
Right, what did she see?
She reported seeing a man whose description matched a local man, Percy Orlando Rush, pushing a wheelbarrow.
When and where?
Around 6:40 a.m. on December 16th. The morning Vera's body was found, and he was heading towards Addison Road.
Okay. Pushing a wheelbarrow towards the discovery site on the morning she was found. That's significant.
And here's the detail. The wheelbarrow, she said, contained a bundle, covered by a very distinctive red tablecloth with a knitted fringe.
A red tablecloth with a knitted fringe. That's incredibly specific. Not something you'd easily mistake.
Exactly. So you have a potential suspect, near the scene, relevant time, means of transport, and very unique visual detail. Huge piece of testimony.
Absolutely huge. Did anything else support this?
Well, a couple of other things came up. Another woman, Kathleen Short, found Vera's red beret.
Where?
Near where Vera was last seen, by the chemist. And apparently it smelled strongly of paraffin.
Paraffin. That's strange. Any idea why?
The sources don't really explain that bit. Near the beret, she also found some torn paper and a piece of candle wax.
Candle wax again.
Yeah. And separately, someone else reported that on the morning Vera was found, the door to a coal shed near Addison Road was seen ajar, which they thought was unusual.
A coal shed near the discovery site, door open.
And crucially, that particular shed, no electric light, fits Spilsbury's deduction.
Wow. So these pieces seem to cluster around that coal shed idea and activity near Addison Road that morning. The paraffin is weird, though.
It is. But all this brings us squarely to the prime suspect, Percy Orlando Rush.
The man Margaret Key thought she saw with the wheelbarrow.
The very same. He was 41, married, a laborer. His job was flannel washing.
Flannel washing. Would that involve chemicals?
Yes. Daily contact with ammonia.
Ammonia. Like the stain on the bandage.
Exactly. And remember his parents, Arthur and Annie Rush, they lived upstairs from Vera at 22 Blenheim Crescent.
Right, the connection within the building.
Well, Percy and his wife had actually lived there too until 1925. And even after moving out, he visited his parents regularly, had his own key to their flat.
So he had easy access to the building where Vera lived, knew the layout.
Precisely. He admitted he knew Vera, called her a nice little girl, but he claimed he hadn't actually seen her for about 3 weeks before she vanished.
Okay, distancing himself slightly there.
And here's another critical piece. Just under a week before the murder, he'd injured the little finger on his left hand at work.
Injured his finger.
Yeah.
So he might have needed a bandage.
Exactly. The connection to Vera's home, the ammonia at work, the finger injury, it all starts pointing very strongly towards Rush, especially with that bandage found on Vera.
It creates a very compelling profile, doesn't it?
It does. So the police question him formally.
And what does he say about the finger and the bandage?
He admits injuring his finger, yes, on December 9th. And he admits wearing a finger bandage after that.
Okay.
He says his wife made him a new one that evening because of the ammonia at work irritating it.
Right. A homemade bandage.
Yes. But, and this is crucial, he claimed he threw that second bandage away into his fireplace on December 11th.
December 11th.
Yeah.
That's 3 days before Vera disappeared.
Exactly. He's claiming he wasn't wearing a bandage at the time of the murder.
What about his colleagues? Did they see him wearing one?
They confirmed the injury, yes. And they confirmed seeing him wear a homemade bandage, but they couldn't be sure if he was wearing one specifically on Monday, December 14th.
So no firm corroboration either way for that specific day. But his claim about discarding it earlier directly contradicts the evidence found with Vera.
It's a major point of contention. If he wasn't wearing one, where did the one on Vera come from? If he was, he's lying.
A big red flag for sure.
And the evidence against him starts to pile up more. They search his home, which was in Talbot Road, nearby.
What do they find?
They find bandages, and significantly, they find a red tablecloth with a knitted fringe.
The tablecloth. Matching Margaret Key's description.
Precisely matching. The very distinctive one she saw covering the bundle in the wheelbarrow.
Wow. Okay, that's huge. What else?
Forensic analysis. The candle wax found on Vera's shoulder. It matched wax from a candle taken from Rush's home. And it also matched wax found on Rush's own overcoat.
Identical composition, so the same source.
Seems so. And his overcoat, it had traces of coal dust and semen.
Coal dust, linking back to the cellar theory, and semen.
Yes. And then there's the bandage itself, the ammonia-soaked one from the crime scene.
Did it fit him?
They found it fit his injured little finger perfectly.
Perfectly. So, tablecloth match, candle wax match, coal dust, semen, bandage fits the injury. It's looked pretty damning.
It really is a powerful web of circumstantial evidence, yet Rush stuck to his story. Maintained he hadn't worn a bandage since the 11th, said he wanted to harden the wound.
Harden the wound.
He did admit visiting his parents often, and knowing Vera, though, he couldn't really deny those connections.
But denying the bandage on the crucial day seems very convenient given everything else.
Extremely convenient. But then, a complication, a twist in the forensic findings.
Oh, what happened?
The home office analyst, Dr. Roche Lynch, he examined the bandage from the crime scene.
Yeah.
He confirmed, yes, it had held a suppurating wound, wound-producing pus, and it contained ammonia. Consistent so far.
Right.
But when he examined it under UV light, alongside bandage samples taken from Rush's home, he concluded the material was different. Different consistency.
Different material. So the bandage found with Vera wasn't made of the same stuff as the samples from Rush's house.
According to Dr. Lynch's analysis, yes. That introduces a significant element of doubt, doesn't it?
It really does. The bandage fits, it has ammonia, it likely held a similar wound, but the material is different. That's a major inconsistency.
It throws a spanner in the works. Does it mean it wasn't his bandage after all, or were the samples taken from his home not the right ones?
It certainly weakens that particular link, which seems so strong.
And adding to the problems, there was a procedural issue with the investigation, a pretty major one.
What was that?
Superintendent Cornish, who was involved, later admitted something quite damaging.
Going.
When they first questioned Percy Rush before conducting a formal search of his home, the officers specifically asked him for samples of his bandages.
They asked him for samples before searching. Oh, dear.
Yeah. Big mistake. It potentially gave Rush a golden opportunity.
To get rid of the actual bandage he might have been wearing, if it was the one found on Vera.
Exactly. By basically telling him, hey, these bandages are important. Before they secured the scene or his belongings, they might have allowed him to dispose of the key piece of evidence.
That's a critical procedural error. It could absolutely undermine the investigation if he did swap or ditch the relevant bandage.
It really could have. Creates that element of what if.
So with all this conflicting evidence and the procedural issue, it eventually goes to the coroner's inquest.
Yes, February 10th, 1932. Percy Rush testifies under oath.
What's his story now? His alibi for December 14th.
He claimed his wife was out until early evening. He said he felt lonely, so he went shopping in Kensington to pass the time.
Okay.
Said he got back home around 8:30 p.m. His wife came back soon after. They went to sleep about 10:15 p.m., standard evening, basically.
What about visiting his parents? Wasn't Monday his usual day?
It was. But he specifically denied visiting them on that Monday, December 14th. Very. And he absolutely, vehemently denied everything else. Luring Vera, the attack, the coal shed, denied it all.
And his connection to Vera? Did he stick to the barely knew her line?
He tried to downplay it even more at the inquest. Claimed he didn't know her as well as maybe he'd first suggested. Said he'd only actually spoken to her once.
That sounds like backtracking.
Yeah.
Trying to create distance. His whole testimony feels constructed, calculated.
It does seem that way, full of convenient denials and memory lapses.
But were there other problems for the prosecution's theory?
Yes, several key points came out that weakened the case against him directly.
Like what?
Well, despite massive efforts, police found no eyewitness who could actually place Percy Rush with Vera on the day she died. 0 sightings of them together.
No direct link there, then.
And no chemist remembered selling Rush bandages of the specific type found with Vera. They couldn't trace its origin back to him via a purchase.
Another dead end.
And that coal shed, the one near Addison Road that police suspected might have been used.
Yes. What about it?
Turns out its previous occupants had moved out, and the padlock had actually been removed 5 full days before Vera was murdered.
So it was likely unsecured and accessible to anyone. Or maybe not the place at all.
Exactly. It muddies the water around that specific location, being the crime scene or storage place. All these points created significant reasonable doubt.
Lack of direct eyewitnesses, untraceable bandage, questionable access to the suspected shed. It chips away at the circumstantial case.
It does. And so the inquest jury, they didn't take long.
How long?
Just 5 minutes of deliberation.
5 minutes? That's incredibly fast.
It is. They returned a verdict. Murder by person or persons unknown. Meaning they explicitly found there was insufficient evidence to charge Percy Rush with the crime.
Wow. Despite the tablecloth, the wax, the finger injury, not enough for a formal charge.
Not enough to meet that legal burden of proof. But the public in the gallery, they didn't agree.
What was the reaction?
Loud booing, heckling directed straight at Rush, especially from the women present. They clearly believed he was guilty.
A strong public sentiment versus the legal finding. It really shows the limits of circumstantial evidence in court, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Compelling, yes, but not definitive proof beyond reasonable doubt in the jury's eyes.
And so, what happened after the inquest?
Nothing officially. The case of Vera Page remains unsolved. No one was ever charged with her murder.
And Percy Rush?
He lived his life. Died of natural causes in 1961, taking whatever secrets he had, if any, to his grave.
So despite that strong circumstantial case, no justice for Vera Page.
None. It's deeply unsettling, and it leaves us with these persistent, haunting questions.
Definitely. Like, could that procedural error asking for the bandages early have genuinely lost them the key evidence? Was that the fatal flaw?
It's impossible to know for sure, but you have to wonder.
And what about Dr. Lynch's finding? Why the difference in the bandage material? Was it a mistake, or was it truly a different bandage?
Another unanswered question. And the biggest one, of course. What really happened to Vera in those hours after she left her friend outside the chemist, we just don't know.
We don't.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how we weigh circumstantial evidence, how compelling it can seem. But that gap between strong suspicion and absolute proof can be impossible to bridge sometimes.
Yeah. And cases like this, these unsolved tragedies, they just continue to fascinate and trouble us decades later.
They do. What does Vera's story tell us ultimately? Maybe about the limits of investigation, even when so much seems to point one way, and about that enduring, sometimes frustrating search for truth and accountability.
Heavy questions. It's a case that certainly stays with you.